There's no housing for the nurses to stay. And at that moment, I'm just like, holy crap, there's an opportunity maybe here. And then I asked her, I was like, I said, how much are you paying for your stay at the Motel 6? And this is what shocked me. She told me that she was paying $2,800 to stay in a Motel 6. If somebody loses their home due to a fire or flood, those are the clients that I want to get. Those are insurance claims, insurance relocation claims. Those pay the highest amount that you can imagine. Like what we're doing, one door is able to bring us in a crazy amount of cash flow. When I say crazy, I'm saying like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on just one door.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sharad. I'm the owner and founder of REsimpli, also an active investor in Northwest Indiana, right outside of Chicago, but I live in San Diego area. I do about 25, 30 flips a year, all remote, virtual, very hands-off business for me. So if you want to talk about that, more than happy to talk about that. Also own about 60 rental units plus a property management company. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. We have a very special guest on this mastermind call today, Jesse Vasquez. Jesse, we have been trying to schedule a podcast, keep going back and forth, canceling, but happy to have you on the call and share your experience. So if you can give us a little bit background about yourself, and then we can jump into it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome, I'm saying welcome. I feel like I'm teaching my class right now, but this is your class. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a step back. Sharad, first off, thanks for having me in here, and everybody here right now. This is super freaking awesome that you guys are connecting with each other. I find it to be so valuable when you have a group of people that are having and sharing a vision or a goal of creating something or creating revenue through real estate. I think it's one of the best things. So give yourselves a pat on the back, because it's pretty freaking awesome that you guys are showing up for yourselves. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jesse Vasquez. I've been in real estate since about 2015, and I actually worked in healthcare for 17 years prior to that. And I left my W-2 job in 2021. I happened to be working in healthcare when I saw that there was a need for travel nurses back in 2015. I'm in Central California. And I ended up actually doing what's called midterm rentals now, but back then there was really no name for it. And I've been able to build a pretty successful business over the last 9 years. And now we have over 20 something properties scattered all over California and in Texas. And yeah, we're just growing right now. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Sharada, I can go into detail about, I have been able to do that stuff, but
what midterm rentals are, how did you get into it? Like, why not do the traditional, either long-term rentals or Airbnb?
yeah, so right now we're living in a I think the market in the real estate space is a little interesting. Well, we've seen the interest rates, higher than they typically were for the last, I don't know, 30 years or something like that. And what I started doing was working with companies to have these companies that will actually pay for housing. And right now we're seeing a lot of different municipalities, counties, cities that are being regulated from, by short-term rentals. If anybody has any short-term rentals that are regulated right now, I would love to hear that in the chat box if you're in a market that you're not able to do them anymore. So this segment of the midterm rental space, which is 30 days or more, I want you guys to realize that it's very similar to long-term rentals, but we're actually renting to companies, we're renting to agencies, we're renting to folks that have lost their home due to a fire or flood or some kind of catastrophic event. And the cool thing about doing what I do is it's not passive. I don't think real estate is really passive unless you happen to buy something and you hand it off to a property manager and receive checks every month. But a lot of times it's not that at all. What I do is a lot more it's a lot more active work. And what I mean by that is I'm going to give you guys this scenario and kind of walk you through what I saw as a need when I was going in healthcare. So back in 2015, I was working in the hospital, like I mentioned before. I was a business development manager, which is the fancy way of saying sales rep for a hospital. And I had to cover from Southern California, Los Angeles area up to San Francisco. I live in NorCal, so that's quite a bit of distance to cover. And in 2015, I was in Modesto, California, in a hospital called Doctors Medical Center. And I was walking the hallway, and if you guys can picture this here for a moment, there's one of those dingy kind of yellow looking, I don't know if you guys have been in any of these old hospitals before. It was a dingy looking yellow hospital. And in the, there's a little kind of U-shaped area where nurses kind of hang out. And there's this woman that had a awesome accent. She was saying things like, don't you know? And isn't he a doll? And I never hear that in California. I was just instantly attracted to that voice. And I asked her, I went up to her and I was like, hey, I hear your voice. Like, you're not from California because everybody around here says dude and bro and man all the time. What are you doing here? And she said, I'm a travel nurse. I'm actually on assignment. She was from Fargo, North Dakota. That's the voice I was just trying to do, and obviously I failed at it. But she was from over in the Midwest, and was working on assignment in Modesto, which is like nothing cool. It's just the armpit of California. And she said she was on assignment, and I asked her how long she was here for, and she said 90 days. And then I asked her where she was staying. And the answer I'm going to give you guys right now is going to, I mean, unless you're from this market, it's not going to shock you, but she was staying at a Motel 6, and this is on 9th Street in Modesto, California, which is like the worst hotel or motel that you can potentially stay at. A lot of drug dealing out of there, prostitution, like what you would not expect a nurse that makes over $140,000 a year, like wouldn't be staying there. And I asked her, I was like, why are you there? And she's like, I can't find any housing. There's no housing for the nurses to stay. And at that moment, I'm just like, holy crap, there's an opportunity maybe here. And then I asked her, I was like, I said, how much are you paying for your stay at the Motel 6? And this is what shocked me. She told me that she was paying $2,800 to stay in a Motel 6. And at that moment, I'm just like, holy crap, like how does somebody pay? So back then, you guys, in 2015, you could buy a house in California, Northern California, the Central Valley area, not the Bay Area, not on the water over there, but Central California. You could buy a house for 200K, 215, right around there. Mortgage payment would be right around $1,100. And so in my mind, I thought that, there's an opportunity right here because she's paying $2,800 for a crappy, 12 by 12 room. And I can potentially go buy a house. And I've seen these travel nurses now that I'm thinking about it as I'm talking to her. I started to remember all these travel nurses that I met in Los Angeles, in random cities in Bakersfield, Fresno, Modesto, Sacramento, Stockton, like all these markets. And I realized, like, holy crap, there's a massive opportunity here. And she told me one thing. She said, there's a woman down in the HR department. There's a company that sends all the employees that are traveling to work here. Go talk to her. And if you talk to her, maybe ask her if she can connect you with my recruiter. And at that moment, I'm like, holy crap, this is like pretty cool. I wasn't ever thinking about real estate. In fact, I grew up, my parents had multiple different properties in the Central Valley in California. They were they were not business mindset. They allowed people to not pay rent, and to, go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and eventually went to court to like try to evict people. And if you guys have ever been through that, it's a freaking nightmare. That was my introduction to real estate at 10 years old, like sitting in the backseat of a car heading to a courtroom. And so I never really thought about getting into real estate because I saw how ugly that side could be, which is the worst side. But I think subconsciously, when this woman started telling me the numbers that she was paying to stay in a motel, it made me realize, like, holy crap, there's an opportunity right now. I should buy a house. I'm 33 years old. Like, this sounds like a good time to buy a house. And the market's pretty good, which I don't know much about. I was making pretty decent cash at that time. So I go down to the HR department in the hospital, and I want you guys to picture this if you can, because this is the most, I wouldn't be here right now if this didn't happen to me. And if anybody works in the HR department, you realize, or in a hospital, you have to have a badge that has a little kind of cord attached to it, and it allows you to go into, different rooms that where only a nurse or whoever, doctor, or whoever's at that hospital can go in there. They have access, right? I didn't have a badge to get into the HR department, unfortunately. And I sat there and waited out in front of the HR department for 10 minutes until this nurse came in and opened the door. And the door swung wide open. It was one of those doors where, it'll close really quick, but then the last maybe foot, it'll slowly close so that it doesn't disturb anybody indoors. And right about 10 inches before the door shut, I walk over to it, contemplating doing it or not. I stuck my foot in between the door, like it wedged in between the door. And at that moment right there, I realized, like, I'm going to go in here and probably look stupid asking questions to this woman that I don't even know. She's probably going to ask why I'm even in here right now. But that was a defining moment where I was scared to do something. It made me realize, like, I'm going to try to push to do it anyway, because that's what I did at my W-2 job, is going to talk to people that probably didn't want to be talked to anyway. That's what sales is, right? So I go in, and there's this woman named Misty that's sitting in front. And she's this big desk, and she has her name. It says Misty in big old letters. And I go up and I say, hey, Misty, I just actually talked to a woman on the 3rd floor at the hospital, up on telemetry floor 3, on the South Tower. Her name is Barbara. She's a travel nurse. Did you happen to know that she's staying at Motel 6 for her assignment here for the next 90 days? And she's like, "What the hell are you doing in this office?" And I explained who I was, and I kind of went through that whole thing. But I said, I just talked to Barbara, and she said she hasn't been able to find housing. Are you guys actually? Do you guys seek housing? And after asking a few questions, what I was doing, in the in that space and all that, she said, "Yeah, we actually have been looking for housing for a long time." The hospital actually used to own residential housing or these units back in the day, and they ended up selling them because they had a lot of travel nurses coming in and out. And she gave me a gentleman's name. His name was Michael. He worked for a company called AMN Healthcare. And she said, "This is the company that we work with for all of our assignments." And at that moment right there, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Like she gave me a name. It's the recruiter of who, or it's Barbara's recruiter. So now I can go to this guy and I can say, "Hey, I want to house nurses." But she took it a step further. She said, "I'll actually make contact with him and I would love to connect with you guys together so that we can actually have a place that's safe and comfortable for these clinicians to start." And that right there, that foot in the door moment, me going in there, me meeting Barbara, I believe it was all kind of like something that was supposed to happen. But as I continue to go through this, I want you guys to start to think about all these different possibilities and companies and travelers and workers and workforce. And we're going to talk about a bunch of different people. But this right here in particular is I was able to get the opportunity to meet a gentleman that worked for a company that sold all these, that was basically recruiting these individuals to go work on assignment in different places. And I was able to build a contract with AMN Healthcare where they're going to pay me $5,500 a month for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I just mentioned you guys back in 2015, I could buy a house and pay 1,100 bucks and, for a 3-2. And that's what I ended up doing. The next 30 days, I just adamantly was going after trying to find a property. I already had connected with Michael from AMN Healthcare. I talked to Misty. I talked to Barbara. And I just went out there and tried to find it and tried to connect the two things. After it was right around 45 days that I got my first property after, going through inspections and doing all the things and all that. Landed the property, got the contract with AMN Healthcare. They were paying me 3 times long-term rental rates. And at that moment right there, I was just like, if I can do this with multiple different companies and acquire more properties, I can actually build a sustainable business because I don't like what I'm doing in healthcare. I don't like driving to San Francisco every day. That's a freaking 2.5 hour drive for me without traffic. And, I was missing time with my kids. I was doing all these things. And I had the long-term picture because if you guys are getting into real estate, it's hard to make money right away, right? It takes kind of a duration of time to do that. So I knew that initially coming in, it was going to take time. But the thing that I didn't know was that what I was doing at my W-2 job, which was sales, going in, talking to people on a business level and asking if they can send referrals to me, that's exactly what I was doing. That's the exact same concept for the B2B market, connecting with businesses from a business standpoint. So what I actually started to do, and this is what's so important for everybody to recognize right here, is that I came into this business not understanding that it was a business, but I understood that I was going to be connecting with companies. And I actually started to create a business out of real estate. And I think so many people now, you know, um, are buying assets like real estate and not understanding they can actually create a business outside of it. And you're seeing property management and stuff like that, which is cool. It's been around forever, right? But this is a totally different thing where fast forward now, have you guys ever heard of Gallo Winery? They make apothic wine. They do a lot of bottling here in California. They're actually in Modesto. I ended up getting a contract with them. They ended up paying $6,000 to have all these engineers that were staying at my property. And what I started to realize again, there's so many companies that are in our own backyards right now that have traveling workforce that come from all over the place, that there's a lot of opportunity for us to start to build and actually create a business by connecting with these companies and agencies by building relationships. And the cool thing about that is that, AMN, that's a 2-year lease at $4,500. Like imagine getting $4,500, 3 times rent. Again, this is back in 2015, which, the rents have gone up, everything's gone up, but I'm able to 2x to 3x, sometimes even 4x long-term rental rates by connecting with these companies, building relationships, and eventually having them send me referrals for people that are coming into my properties or coming into our market. So it's one of those things where I want you guys to think about where, you're actually building a business that's alongside your, tangible asset. So it's a pretty cool concept. It takes a lot of work, but it definitely can be done. I can go into a little bit more nuances of that, Sharad.
Yeah, Jesse, thank you for sharing that, man. Yeah, incredible story. It's funny how things, you get into a business just by being curious about where that person was, ended up having, being from North Dakota and just asking some questions. It kind of led you down the path of buying, getting into real estate, buying those property. That's interesting. I didn't realize that you signed a 2-year contract with them. So they paid you whether the house was occupied or not.
Yes, yeah, yeah, they did. And the thing with like, were you talking about? We're talking about the nursing. Yeah, so the nurses they had
Right.
there was always a constant flow of the nurses,
Okay.
constant flow of the nurses. So there was always, and the thing with me is that they each had their own room. The agency was paying whether there's people there or not. So that's what's pretty cool is you can get these contracts with these companies that will pay, a year, 2 year, 3 years in advance. Sometimes they'll even do, you might get a month or 2 months or 3 months. So you have to have that flexibility in your head, but you're also making 2x or 3x long-term rental rates when you're doing that, when you're working with these.
What kind of neighborhood would be a good fit for, this midterm rental? So it's anything that's more than 30 days to like maybe 3 months, 4 months, right? Is that fair to say? Your typical
Yeah.
stay?
This typical stay, it really depends on your client. So if you have, like a construction company that's in town doing, working on something, and I'll tell you guys a couple other stories a little bit later. But I mean, yeah, I would say the average stay is probably anywhere between 2 to 3 months, maybe longer than that,
Okay.
depending on the different types of clients there are out there. I don't call them tenants because they're not tenants; they're just staying for a duration of time. In our leases, we actually have, um, we don't say tenants at all. We say guests or clients,
Okay.
and we have the agencies be the lessees on the property. So if these guests screw the house up or do whatever, these multi-million-dollar agencies are actually on the hook for that property.
Got it.
So that's a
Okay.
pretty cool thing. You're not just having
Yeah.
some random person be the lessee. These companies are
All
actually
right.
lessees.
Mark has a question. With
Yep.
these 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom houses you bought and are getting 4,500 to 5,500 per month rent for 2-year contract, are you putting multiple nurses in a house, or
Mhm.
is it just one healthcare provider that you rent the house to and then they kind of manage the nurses on their end?
Yeah, it's a good question, Mark. So yeah, we have multiple nurses that are coming. Keep in mind, I created a relationship with the company. Michael was the first gentleman that I talked about, the recruiter. Then I ended up getting a contract with that company because they were sending clients to Modesto, California so often. It was one of those little pockets that just didn't have enough clinicians to meet the demand of patients. And these are all over the US, by the way. Um, so yeah, you don't need to, if you have a studio or a 1 bedroom, perfect for travel nurses, perfect for business professionals, things of that nature. But if you have a 3, 2 or bigger, there's multiple different avenues that you can go. There's a lot of millennials that are traveling in groups right now that are that are clinicians, doctors, occupational therapists, physical therapists, specialty doctors that are coming to live or work on assignment with their families, sometimes for 6 months at a time. So yeah, you're renting. You have to know who your avatar is. You have to really know who you're going to be going after. It's going to be super, super important.
So what kind of neighborhood would be a good fit, for to do something like this?
Good question. I typically like to have B plus or B minus neighborhoods or better. And the reason being is because if you're a travel nurse, you're not going to want to stay in a C minus neighborhood. You're not going to want to feel comfortable. Keep in mind, these clinicians are working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So you got people coming in and out. If there's a lot of, folks that are coming in and out of the markets. I have property in Oakland in a, C plus area. There's transient folks all over the place in Oakland. Travel nurses don't like that property because of that. So you have to be very mindful of that. So I've learned over the years that a B kind of minus or better is best, and it serves multiple different types of clients. So just so you guys, I talked about this earlier. If somebody loses their home due to a fire or flood, those are the clients that I want to get. Those are insurance claims, insurance relocation claims. Those pay the highest amount that you can imagine. Like right now, I have a 4 bedroom, 2 bath, multiple 4 bedroom, 2 baths that are rented to families that lost their homes due to a fire or flood. And I mean, we're getting paid $8,000 for, literally people staying for 30 days at a time. And most of those claims are 3 months, 6 months. It just depends on, kind of what's going on with their house, what kind of damage was done on there. But again, this is the same concept. I'm creating relationships with these companies. So now that, anytime a family loses their home in a fire or flood, they're reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, what do you got in Modesto? What do you got in Stockton? What do you got in Lodi? What do you have in Turlock? What do you have in, Houston, Texas?" And now I'm making a lot more money. In fact, if you guys ever get a chance, go listen to Bigger Pockets. I was on there. Just type in Jesse Vasquez Bigger Pockets with 9 properties back in 2020, 2021. Whenever I was on there, we were grossing over $1 million just on 9 properties because they were all rented to, insurance relocation companies. We got claims with with Gala Winery, with all these different kinds of companies, and your rent is so much higher. And I think a lot of times people think they need to have all these doors. Like, I need to have 30 doors. I need to have 10 doors. I need to do this. But if you actually talk to those people that have 10, 20, or 30 doors and you ask them what their cash flow is, it might only be like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 bucks. But like what we're doing, one door is able to bring us in a crazy amount of cash flow. When I say crazy, I'm saying like 1,000, 2, 3, $4,000 on just one door. So now that idea of having so many doors like just goes out the window. Why not just be very intentional about who you're going after
Yeah.
and what you're actually doing so you can create some income? And that's really where it's at. I think again, I talked about the real estate economy and how things are right now and rents, where they're at. It's just for me, I don't own any long-term rentals. I don't want to own any long-term rentals. I just see the upside of this. It's so much greater. Yes, but it is
Right.
more work, right, Sharad? It
Yeah.
definitely is.
Alex has a question. If you had a choice to build a nice detached ADU, additional dwelling unit with a private entrance in A, B neighborhood in Downey, California, what is the desirable or needed square foot size for a traveling nurse?
Yeah, I know Downey very, very well. I definitely would build in Downey. I mean, a lot of people down in those markets are building ADUs. I probably would do 1,000 square feet, maybe 800. And this is the thing, you guys, like there's so many different avatars and that word just bothers me. I don't know why, but there's so many different types of tenants or not tenants. I call them clients that it's really like who you're going to be going after. So if I'm going to be going after travel nurses and Downey has a ton of construction that's happening, it's one of those markets that's continuing to grow. It's in Southern California. I think it's over in Orange County if I'm correct, just right outside Los Angeles. But that market is just is growing. So there's a lot of different clients that you can go after. But that's what I would be doing if I was in that space. I'd really be looking at an ADU that is, maybe a 2 bedroom or bigger because it's going to allow you to do. Oh, you're in LA County. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that's what I would be doing. I'd be
Hmm.
doing that there.
And how would you go about building relationship with these, insurance relocation companies or engineering companies or travel nursing companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I typically do is there's companies called ALE Solutions, Dan Housing, THD Housing. These are all insurance relocation companies. And what I would do, and this is how I built this business, is I crafted a short, small email to on LinkedIn, and I would, for those of you that aren't using LinkedIn, it's like one of the best strategies for this specific thing. Where I'll type in relocation specialist Dan Housing or relocation specialist ALE Solutions, and you'll have all these people that pull up all these people that work for these companies, and I'll just send them a note and say, hey, I'm actually looking to help you house folks that are coming into certain markets. I have a massive database of over 500 properties because we have a community that has all these things. I would love to help you with your next claim. That's literally how I do it. It is not even in my market. I'm just trying to help them find a claim. And this is what's cool about the midterm rental space is that, Sharad, if I have a property, like let's say Alex has a place in Downey. If I have a relocation specialist that reaches out to me and says, hey, Jess, do you have anything in Downey, California? I need a 2 bedroom, 1 bath for a family of 2 and a dog. I can now go to Alex and be like, hey, Alex, I just got a referral. They're looking to spend the insurance relocation claim is $7,000 a month. Is that cool for you? Like, I would like to take 10% of that. I'll send you a referral. I'll send you this client. I'm going to continue to work this lead. So I want you guys to imagine a wholesale deal. So you guys have all done wholesale deals before where you find a property off market, you do things and you sell it to Sherrod or myself or Robert or, Marshall, somebody in here, right? Somebody in the group. This is the exact same concept where I can get a lead somewhere. It could be an insurance company. It could be a business traveler going to a certain market. It could be, there's so many different ways. And now I can reach out to you guys and say, hey, here's what I have. Here's the opportunity. Here's how much it pays. And this is going to be a $10,000 booking over the next, 3 months. If you don't mind, I require a 10% fee for that. So now I get to make cash. We're taking care of the client and I'm actually taking care of the company that I work for. So there's a lot of like reciprocation that comes along with this business if you start to get involved in it the way that I'm talking about right now. And that's what we do. We share a lot of referrals with each other. It's not, like the Airbnb space, which I love. I have Airbnb properties, by the way. But everybody's like, that pick me movement. I have the best photos. I have the best pictures. Pick my place. It's the best. And this really is different because we're really, we can't do anything without each other. I just have the ability with all these other people that are in this space doing the same thing that I am. We could share these referrals. We could share these opportunities for each other. So not only am I listed on Airbnb, Furnish Finder, VRBO, chbo.com, but we're also connected with each other. So we're able to send referrals to one another. I think that's a pretty freaking awesome position to be in.
Jesse, this is
Place rented.
this is incredible, man. I'm gonna have my team start looking into this. So You said ALE solution. What are some of the other companies where you can, connect with temporary housing providers?
Yeah, so ALE Solutions, THD, Dan Housing, those are just a few of them. I would just go into Chat GPT and just type in what are
Got it.
insurance relocation companies that I want to connect with. It'll probably, I mean, there's hundreds of them. There's so many of them that are all over the place. And
You
keep
could
in
just
mind,
like Google temporary
yeah,
housing providers, right?
totally.
Okay.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing that I want everybody to realize though. If you message these people and you say, "Hey, I have a property in um, LA County and Downey. I would like to get it booked if you have anybody." They're going to hang up on you and not care because you're trying to get your place booked. I would really come into this with the mindset of how can I help serve these relocation specialists that are working with people that have lost their homes. And we're talking about like devastating fires where people are killed, where people die in these fires, their pets are lost. Like I really want you guys to understand that because when you go to these folks and you say, "Hey, I want to have place booked," like they don't want to hear that. You really want to be able to go to them and say, "How can I help serve the clients that you have now that might be sitting on your desk? They might be in a totally different market. Forget about your house. I just want to build a relationship with somebody. And if that's me taking a claim in Downey, California, where I have no properties and I'm going to go try to find housing for them, I'm going to do that because now that's giving me an entryway to actually build a relationship with somebody instead of saying like, "Hey, I got a place, like pick mine. I want you to rent my place." Like everybody wants their place rented and they're all going to get those messages. But if you really want to be thoughtful and actually creative on how can I create a relationship with somebody, you have to have that servitude mindset coming in because I think this business is continuing to grow. It's grown a lot over the last couple of years. It's definitely grown since I, talked about this on Bigger Pockets, but I think there's still a huge, massive opportunity. There's just not enough houses to meet the demand. Every 60 seconds, somebody loses their home due to a fire or flood. There's a claim that gets put in to, one of these agencies or companies, farmers or whatever is filing a claim, and you'll have THD that will pick up that claim and go find housing for them. So that's what you're doing. You're essentially like a middle person. But hopefully that makes sense, Rod, and everybody here. Like,
No, it does. It does. This is absolutely, yeah, this is like I never like looked into this side of the I own a bunch of rentals, but they're all long-term rentals. The market that I invest in, it's not, really conducive to Airbnb, but I think this could be a good fit. I want to ask you of all the clients that you work with, are there one type of clients that are better than the other, like nursing clients versus like construction workers or, like engineers?
yeah, I like them all. I mean, construction workers can be a little bit. I mean, they'll come in with their work boots and stuff like that. But I really, really love the ability to. Let me give you guys another example real quick. So I'm gonna tell you guys a story. Sharad, this is important for everybody to realize. This is where I really wanted everybody to kind of get these stories, so you guys it makes sense to you guys. So for those of you guys that are in a market right now and you're driving by and you see something being built, so I'm going to give you the story that I saw this opportunity. I was driving by you guys heard of Dave and Buster's? It's the adult kind of playground where you can go play video games and drink beer and stuff in there, which is pretty cool for adults. So there was one of those that was being built from the ground up in Modesto, California. I was driving by there and I looked and I saw a truck and it had work plates from Louisiana. And I drove by there and I pulled out my iPhone. I took pictures of the truck and I went home and I called the company and I talked to a woman and I said, "Hey, I just saw there's a work truck out in front. The plates are from Louisiana. I'm from California. I'm actually Modesto, about 0.2 of a mile away from the job site. And I saw that there's a work truck out there, several work trucks with plates that were out of state. So I wanted to reach out to you guys because I own multiple different properties and I house construction workers just like the people that are help building this new Dave and Buster's." And she said, that's cool. Like, what can you do?" And I asked her, I was like, "Well, where are your employees staying right now?" And she said they had 5 engineers, Sharad, that were staying at a Holiday Inn Express. And then I asked her how much they were paying a month for the Holiday Express, and they were paying over $25,000 to have 5 dudes staying
Wow.
in rooms in a Holiday Inn Express. And I said, "What if there's a chance where I could save you thousands of dollars every month? Would that be something that would be helpful for you and your staff?" And she's like, started chuckling and she's like, "Yeah, I don't know if they're going to want to live together." And I said, "Well, have a place. It's a 5 bedroom. 3 of your favorite people will have their own bathroom. 2 guys will have to share one, but they're all going to have their own space. They have a backyard. There's a pool. And this is what I do. This is how we take care of people. But you'd have to pay $10,000 a month. But doesn't paying $10,000 a month sound better than paying 25K a month? That's saving them, $15,000 already. That's over $45,000 for the 90 day, the 3 months they were on assignment for. So this is what I'm telling you guys right now. Like, there's so many opportunities that are everywhere. We ended up actually getting a contract. 7 days later, those dudes moved out of Holiday Inn Express, which was $155 a night plus taxes. It came out to $200 a room. I was saving that company $15,000 a month for 3 months. All the guys lived in one spot. They all did the same thing, and all it was me driving by, being thoughtful, seeing work trucks from Louisiana,
Yeah.
taking a picture, and just like I talked about a minute ago, servitude, what am I actually able to do? How can I save a company money? How am I able to be a dotted line extension of what they're doing already? You guys, this is like a no-brainer. Again, too many people are thinking the same way, and I think it's so important to change the narrative when it comes to real estate because there's so many opportunities that these corporate entities and corporate companies have been doing for 30, 40 years, because essentially it's corporate housing. But now the little guys like myself, you guys, can now go out and reach out to these companies and start to actually build a solid database by connecting with these companies. And guess what? After those guys left the property, they were going to Houston, Texas. Guess what I had in Houston, Texas? A bunch of properties. So now I built a relationship, and this is literally just by me driving by a Dave and Buster's is being built.
Right.
So think about that, you guys. Right now, there's infrastructure bill that was passed at the end of last year. There's $1.3 trillion that's being circulated all over the U.S. And you guys can go to, gosh, I forget that. Let me go grab the job site real quick. I think it's invest.gov. If you guys go to invest.gov, it'll show you all these jobs that are being put together all across the US. And on that website, it'll actually show you a map of where the private and public money is putting into job sites. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm just going after the public companies that are looking to build EV chargers, that are doing all these things. And it'll actually show you where these companies are. And I'll reach out to them and say, hey, we got property there, or we don't have property there, but I'd love to be able to house you. And then I'll go hook up with um, an investor that has a 30-unit building that's almost being done constructed. I'll set up a contract with myself and him to rent those properties out. And now, I'm using his properties to get his, 20 places rented out. I got a connection with this company, and now we're actually building something, of actual value where we're making cash flow from it. So again, I just, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. There's a lot of different ways to understand it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot different than what you guys are probably used to. But again, I think it's one of the smarter, more intuitive ways to build
Yeah.
a successful cash flowing business. Because at the end of the day, what does it matter if it's not cash flowing?
Yeah.
Yes, I do love 30 years of owning a property, you're going to pay it down. But what about like right now? Let's get cash flow today. And I think a lot of times people forget that. But again, real estate is a long game, right? We know that the appreciation of that property is going to take, unless you're in California, sometimes it happens pretty quick, but it's also timing of the market and all those other things. But this is definitely a way to bring significant cash flow, but you have to do work. It's not passive, and not even a little bit.
And then do all these companies sign contract with you? Like the company that you talked about that was managing the construction of Dave and Buster, like did they sign a 2-year contract for their
No,
properties?
no,
Okay.
they did 90 days, but keep in mind, like the property that was rented for 10K a month, my mortgage is $2,500 on that. I'm still making
Right.
$6,000, $7,000 a month from one door. Like that's freaking
Right.
wild. So again, like you guys got to like, I'm talking about this right now because I'm excited about it. I've been doing it for a long time, and there's so many different ways to make money in this space. And I think again, if you have that entrepreneur, this is not for everybody, by the way. This is not for like, yes, cash flow sounds fun, but are you going to actually sit behind a phone and dial people up? Are you going to make 10 calls a day? Are you going to drive by random construction companies and take pictures of the truck? And like, that's not for everybody. There's only a small amount of people that are willing to look at this like an entrepreneur and build a business on top of the real estate. And I think
Yeah.
that's really where, if you have those two pieces and you are understanding it to a pretty good degree, then it's definitely the position for you to build in.
All right. Justin has a question. Do you have any tools you use or recommend for analyzing a property as a midterm rental?
Yeah, so there's a company called Price Labs. They run short-term rental analytics, but they will allow you to see 30-day stays. You can also go on Furnish Finder, you can go on AirDNA, you can go on all these different short-term rental markets, and you can just put in the 30-day search period, and you can just start to see what properties, like that's how you do comps. And keep in mind, you guys, like this space right now is so young. We just had the World Series that passed, right? So I'm going to give context to baseball because I'm a big baseball fan. So short-term rental space is like, I feel like it's been around for a while. It's been through these kinds of different concepts where you guys remember Lux Stays, they had that for a while, that went away. And now everything's really experiential with short-term rentals. I feel like Airbnb's in the 7th inning. So imagine being able to get into a market that's going to continue to grow. It's starting out now. The swell's starting to happen. And that's where I feel like the midterm rental space is. It's like we're barely in the first inning. We're barely just getting out in the field for the first inning. So I do believe that there's a lot of upside coming from this. In fact, over the last 4 years, 21% of Airbnb's income has come from 30-day stays or more, 30 plus day stays. That's almost a quarter of the millions and millions and millions of dollars the Airbnb is bringing in. So if that doesn't give you guys concept of like this is
Interesting.
going to continue to grow. Like it definitely is.
All right. Alex has a question. Is a two-bedroom ADU a need for traveling nurse? I was thinking of a 580 square feet. How can I find out what's in demand in regards to the size?
Yeah, I don't think it really matters the size. I think it goes back to, again, who are you wanting to serve? Who are the clients that you're looking to serve? If that's a travel nurse, they're probably not going to care too much about a bigger place. I like to have different exit strategies. That's why I like 3 bedroom, 2 baths or bigger. I do have studios, I do have 1 bedrooms, I do have 2 bedrooms, but I like to have an exit strategy. So if my property doesn't perform well as a midterm rental, I can position it as a 3-2, short term rental. If that doesn't work, I can rent by the room like somebody was just talking about a minute ago. So it just gives me more flexibility. I like the ability to be able to pivot quickly into another asset class or into another market or into another exit strategy like short-term, midterm, rent by the room, all those different things, because there's sometimes that certain markets just don't work the way you want to. Or say I get a 3-month booking, Sherrod, and then I don't get another booking for another month and a half, or somebody books it out a month and a half later. What am I going to do with those 45 days? I can now short-term rent those 45 days until I get that, longer stay. So there's just a lot of
Right.
ways to kind of move things around, keep money consistent like that. So yeah, Alex,
Yeah,
yeah.
even when you think about like an average hotel room size is about 300, 350 square feet. So if you can build like a two-bedroom unit, there's always going to be a demand for that. Even if you have a space where, I feel like, correct me, Jesse, if I'm wrong, even if you have a space for like a small ADU, like 300, 350 square feet, and you can make it nice, there would still be some people. It might not have as much demand as a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, but you would still have some demand. A traveling nurse that was going to stay in a Motel 6 would much rather stay in a
Oh,
nice like
heck yeah.
ADU, right?
Yeah, not only that, but like the thing about this too, you guys, is, if you're really proactive on going after these companies, like a nurse is not going to care about a 450 square foot unit if it's put together well in a good neighborhood that has a great market. And then this is the other thing too that I want you guys to realize: Modesto, California, where I first got my first contract, is the armpit of California. Like there's nothing here. It's literally nothing. So, but the thing about this market is that there's a university in every. There's only one university out here. There's multiple, but there's only one place that has a nursing state. You can actually get a nursing degree. They only have 30 graduates a year, and I actually talked to the Stan State University about this. Out of their